when you give a presentation now, and you're giving it to a non-technical audience perhaps, or maybe for a technical audience that's not an expert in your area, how do you convey that information in a way that they are going to be able to remember and apply?
Well, let me give you an example. My current work is largely in connection with the food system. And I've given talks to lay audiences on behalf of Maine Farmland Trust, other groups, in which I have a PowerPoint presentation, and I talk very simply about how many tons of water it takes to produce a ton of grain, how many tons of grain it takes to produce a ton of beef versus pork versus poultry versus aquaculture fish, the environmental impact and so forth, all in terms that are aimed at somebody who's probably, I don't know, high school level, 10th grade, something like that. It's usually new concepts and new information to somebody who has a college or a postgraduate degree in something other than agriculture and nutrition and food systems. So it's new to them and interesting, but it's also understandable to people who have not taken a college level course in economics or something like that. When I talk in the same domain to an audience of people who are very sophisticated about the food system, then I tend to either ratchet up the level of detail or talk more about the methodology of how these numbers were arrived at, or I'm trying to take their current level of knowledge and not necessarily expand it, but make it more nuanced. And you know, the feedback I generally get is positive, and but every once in a while, you know, my wife is my best critic, and so something will be recorded, videotape, or she'll happen to join me and sit in the audience, and then she lets me down gently, but she says, well, it would have been a little more clear if, and then I factor that into my thinking about how am I presenting this. But I go back to that story of Nick Kristof. You know, this situation is pretty dire with regard to the future of food security, climate change and water shortage and so forth, and extreme storm events. But here's what you can do today and 21 times a week. By the decisions you make about what kind of food you eat, you can decrease your carbon footprint. You can talk to your family and friends.